Hold on. Hello and welcome to What's Next. It's the Indy NXT Road Series. We're here from Miami this week. High in the sky around Hard Rock Stadium is where we're looking around at the time being, ready to roll off for round number 3 of 12 of the first season of 2026 for the Indy NXT Road Series. Joining me once again is Sophie Connell, ready to take in the sights and sounds of this brand new to iRacing track here around that Hard Rock Stadium.
Indeed, it is one of the newer F1 tracks on the calendar. As you said, it tours around the home of the Miami Dolphins, whose season isn't looking too good, but hoping for some draft picks. I'm sure the fans of that team are. But yeah, got some long straightaways, some very technical, challenging corners, and some interesting corner cuts that you can do, Jacob.
Yeah, we highlighted one of those in the track guide we had on P1 this week, notably through that kind of chicane that they've got on the far end of the track. We're going to ride out with Henry Olied. Oliedi? I'm going to have to ask Henry how you pronounce his last name, but we're going to ride out with him in qualifying here. He's our number 1 car, so he's likely to put down a solid lap here. He's heading out on the out lap here. One thing to kind of note about this place is that one corner we just saw Henry come through, very, very tricky to kind of time when you can commit back into the pedals in either direction, either onto the brake or onto the throttle. We'll watch as he throttles down the backstretch here, getting ready to head off into another very tight left-hander at the end of the backstretch. Another very tricky right-hander leading up into that chicane we mentioned. We'll see what Henry does on the outlap here. He's going to play it safe. And, kind of talk us through what you've seen of this track, Sophie. Obviously, it's pretty new to just about everybody here unless you've raced it previously in the F1 games. Of course, iRacing has its own kind of handling characteristics to get around, but this place is very tricky. It's somewhat akin to a street track, even if it's not entirely one. So we'll have to see how that kind of plays out over the course of the main event tonight.
For sure, and one of the key features of this track is, again, it is, while not technically a street circuit, it has so many of the characteristics of a street circuit. You can see how close the walls are to that racing surface, and then everything else is painted. You'll just see all that blue there trying to simulate a marina that kind of give it a very quite distinct visual feel. But there's also a lot of great elements as a driver that you can enjoy about this track. There's a lot of technical components. What's really interesting is there's a lot of long straightaways. Interestingly, unlike a lot of modern F1 tracks, the start-finish straight is not the longest. That goes towards the long backstretch coming out of that marina loop. And that can create a lot of passing opportunities. So not only can it be a technical challenge, but it can also be a lot of fun to race because of the draft created by these cars.
Yeah, we're heading down that long back straightaway, if you will, right now with Henry here on his first of 2 flying laps. You notice how he's hugging kind of all the way over the left side of the wall until just after there's a bit of a dip. I believe there's a road that connects kind of partway in between there, partway through the backstretch. You're kind of trying to mitigate your way around as he'll head towards that chicane. We'll see if he gets more aggressive through it this time. Does not appear so, so it looks like drivers are opting not to test their mettle against the bollard on the inside of that chicane there. But, we talk about passing opportunities. These cars do have a 50 horsepower power increase via a push-to-pass system. So we'll likely see a number of drivers make a shot at each other down that backstretch on the push-to-pass, given just how long it is, and you can probably mount up a sizable run.
Oh, for sure, and especially in some of these junior Formula cars, they're going to be a little bit more drafty. You're not going to have as much top end compared to, say, the big sister, the Dallara IL-15. Currently is at a more established F1 track at Spa-Francorchamps, but so you're definitely going to want to be on that push to pass as quickly as possible, build as quick of a run, and hopefully get around someone before the car kind of hits the top speed as you head towards those.
Yeah, we just wrapped up coverage on P1 of that event at Spa in the top split. We'll go outboard with Henry for the second lap here. He currently sits second provisionally on the grid. Jarrett Corey with the fastest time thus far, 1:46.025. biggest thing that I've noticed turning laps at this track is just how easy it is to kind of overshoot any given corner, whether you're on the throttle or on the brakes. You know, we saw it with catch out a number of drivers at Spa with the wet conditions there, but this track introduces its own set of challenges just given the kind of the very, very flat nature of the braking zones, despite a decent bit of elevation change on the far end. So, you know, it's very gradual. We'll see Henry kind of navigate the chicane. It's a slight uphill, but it basically flattens back out immediately. And that's the tricky part here is you're not having the leverage of that elevation change very often to assist you in getting the car slowed down. So you very much have to back these corners up and hug them nice and tight as we navigate the second long straightaway here and down into the final corner. And this seems to be a very tricky corner in its own right, just given how much space you have to navigate through here. We'll see Henry tuck nice and tidy on the inside here and punch off. But certainly a very difficult track to get around. Let's not discount that in the slightest. They certainly knew what they were doing with trying to get those Formula One machines checked up and show off all their metal across this circuit here in Miami, Florida.
Right, and one of these things drivers definitely need to keep in mind when they're going for those fast laps, trying to knock off Derek Corey for pole. The thing is, as much as you want to, charging these corners, pushing too hard, that's going to put you out of position. And when you're in some of these tighter technical sections, like in that Marina loop, that is going to just compound your time loss, because you can't, say, square up one corner more than the other because you've already run wider than you needed to kind of maintain your line. So it's a real challenge, as we see some drivers currently struggling in the session, keeping these IL-15s under them.
Yeah, sizable gap back to even just second spot between Corey and Olied. Jarrett only able to get a couple thousandths that second time by, but a couple thousandths nonetheless, moving his time further up the board. We've got now 3 drivers sitting inside that 146 second bracket. We kind of talked about it briefly in the guide this week. We expected lap times to maybe get into those 145s in the right conditions, in the right hands, and Jarrett just borderline of that with a 146.018. So certainly something that we'll have to keep an eye on as the week progresses as to how this track kind of navigates various track conditions. We've talked that quite honestly, the biggest thing that's always going to trouble this car is rear tire wear, especially late into the run. We've talked with a number of drivers talking about how they're using a bit more front brake bias to get around that, maybe adjusting the in-car roll bars, try to mitigate that a little bit, particularly on the front, to prevent the rear of the car from sliding out from behind them. But we're in the final minute of qualifying now. A couple cars still out circulating the track as it stands. But I think the big thing that we're going to take from this race is just how effective is that push-to-pass system once more. We've seen it at the likes of Road America. We've seen it at the likes of Sebring, where if you get late in the stages here, you know, you've only got 150 seconds of push-to-pass to play with here. So it's certainly a challenge to manage that number given how many laps and just how long the potential opportunities to make the most of it are here.
Yeah, and one interesting thing I really want to highlight real quick is there is actually a tie in terms of times between Logan Edwards, who had a brilliant run at Spa in the wet just about an hour prior, has run the exact same time of a 146.679. 147.679. Has run the same time as Isabella Matthews from Great Britain. So drivers starting 6th, 7th, very close on pace. Should be interesting to see if they have a nice battle as we begin to grid up.
And that we shall. We'll get through that grid as it stands. So it will be Jarrett Corey taking the pole with a 146.018, just short of that 145 mark we thought we were going to maybe see tonight. Henry Olied will start second. Edie Kirkebauer, the prodigy for Votive Racing, will line up third alongside Tom Donahoe in the 4th spot. Alex Stevens will roll off 5th alongside Luke Mansky Racing's Logan Edwards, hot off a podium in the Indy Open Series in the wet at Spa. Isabel P. Matthews is making an appearance here on the top split for Indy next. She'll roll off 7th. Rupert McLean will roll off 8th in the 16 machine. Eli Hinton will round out the final row of the top 10 with Chris Fletcher. Move down to the last 7 starters of the grid. We've got Joseph Plommel starting 11th, Brandon Staton in 12th, John Corwin making an appearance in the Road Series. Good to see John out once again. He'll roll off 13th. Michael Leiberman will roll off 14th. Ellis Spice will roll off 15th, not setting a time. Likewise with Dustin Bulgren alongside him. And Georgie Tripsick will be the 15 car in our 17 car field tonight, rounding out our field.
Yeah, 3 drivers did not set a time, those being Ellis Spice, 9 car. Dustin and Georgie did also not set times. Seems to be some consternation already about the fact that there is no shortened pace lap on this very long track. Some drivers seem to just be itching to get into the action.
Well, I think this might be a track that benefits from having a longer pace lap. We'll give drivers an opportunity to use a bit more of the brakes, heat the tires up, maybe do a bit of wiggling, as we tend to see fairly often, particularly on ovals in pretty much any machine you could think of. But we've seen it a good bit in the Road Series as well. 12 laps on offer here tonight. That means there's going to be 11 laps in which drivers have that push-pass system available to them. Keep in mind, you are not able to use that on the opening lap, so it'll be only the 11 laps to close the event out that they'll be able to use that. We're going to stay relatively high in the air for the start here, get a good look at the course around that Hard Rock Stadium, and we'll see what these drivers have in the Indy NXT Road Series nice and early this week. Strength of field's just under 3,000. I believe it was like 2,800, 2,900 and change. I'll confirm that shortly. But certainly going to be one of the bigger fields we see throughout the week. You've got arguably some of the best on the road to Indy with the likes of Jared Corey and Henry Olied. Obviously the Indy NXT Oval Series champion and Indy Kirkenbauer starting in that second row. So stout field in its own right, and we're going to have to see how they navigate this very tricky track here in Miami.
Indeed, and honestly, it's Miami is a nice setting right now. Many of us, it's winter here for me, and I'm sure for you, Jared. Sorry, not Jared. Jacob. Got a little confused hearing our pole sitter talk over voice chat. I'm sure, some beaches, Cubano sandwich. Sounds pretty good right now, doesn't it?
Well, I tend to enjoy the wintertime because that gives me the permanent excuse to try to stay indoors as much as possible because it's cold outside. However, it is nice to see that we've got some fresh tracks here on the iRacing simulator. Of course, this joining the likes of the Adelaide Street Circuit and the off-road track at Lucas Oil, which if you haven't checked it out, I do highly recommend. It's a doozy, but it is one that you'll be laughing all the way home in your preferred off-road vehicle of choice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun in the new cross car. It's definitely a great way to spend some time just goofing off, trying to de-stress after maybe, say, doing some stressful setup work in a Dallara IL-15. I'm not speaking from experience.
Well, we're finally navigating the back stretch here, I do believe. So these drivers will be heading off into the final corner shortly. See when the pace car pulls off. I don't exactly recall when the pit lane starts here. I've done about a couple dozen laps here at this point across various cars for the Track Guide series, but I don't exactly know where the pit lane starts here. So we'll see when the pace car opts to get out of our way here and unleash the 17-car field of IL-15s onto the Miami International Autodrome for the first time.
Yep. Pit entry looks to be just off to your right. Pace car is in.
Jarrett's got the jump.
Green flag, green flag.
All on his lonesome. We'll hop back a couple cars through the field. Indy Kirkenbauer looks to the inside of Olied into the first corner here. 2x2 for the first couple rows here behind Corey.
Oh, got some car running through the runoff there after a little hip check.
That'll be Donahoe, I believe, making contact with Logan Edwards. That'll move Edwards up to 4th and Donahoe down to 7th. He'll be under attack from Isabel Matthews heading into the loop section here.
I mean, see these cars really struggling on cold tires, really running off into that blue runoff there.
Yeah, Hinton will make the move on Blommel there. So Donahoe chases down Matthews.
Alan K. Stevens has just popped over chat saying that their cat has decided to hop between their legs and is currently nuzzling against their feet as they're working those pedals. That's an interesting challenge to have as a race car driver.
Yeah, I can't say that'd be one you'd see too often in the real world for sure, but we've got the likes of Tom Donahoe alongside Eli Hinton. He'll make that move stick. Heading off into the final corner. Chicane in full force here. They're going to all navigate clean through there. Corey already out to about a 1.5 second lead as they navigate the back straightaway. Relatively speaking, clean going so far here as we navigate through the end of the opening lap here.
Yeah, it's been all clean. A little bit of argy-bargy, as they would say, but for the most part, all clean. No body panels being shed.
Yeah, Matthews is going to run deep at the final corner here. That's going to give Donahoe a run down the front straightaway here, but Matthews will tuck in behind here. They're going to go 3 wide down the front stretch here.
Yeah, that's a bold strategy. But it looks like Isabella's going to back out, leave discretion be the better part of valor as they work their way through the opening corners here, as they can now use their push to pass. They can use that overtake to maybe try and get some of these passes done on these longer straightaways here.
Yeah, and I believe we heard Ellis Spice go off in the background. They're now in the pit lane. Not sure what happened to them. We'll get a replay on that quickly here. So they're coming off the first corner here. Going to go straight loop. I believe they're going to get a bit of this curb on the right here. Just too much throttle, it looks like, and off they go into the left side wall. That's going to be likely night done for Ellis. Tough break here early.
Yeah, the tech pro is meant to protect the driver, not the car, unfortunately.
So we'll get a bit closer to the action here as Jarrett Corey leads from Henry Olied. Little over a 1.25 seconds separating these two. Jarrett getting on the push to pass for the back straightaway here. Oh, big moment. Was that Eli Hinton in the background getting off the final corner there? He manages to hold on to it in the 6th spot.
Yeah, and what has been interesting is that between Tom Donahue and Eli Hinton, Tom Donahue was just a little bit quicker. But it seems that them fighting might bring up Josef Newgarden and Isabella Matthews into that fight.
Yeah, that is effectively the closest group of cars on the track as it stands. They're separated by around 1.5 seconds, the 4 of them. You've got the likes of Rupert McLean just behind them, about another second back of that. So we're navigating back through the opening complex of corners as we're working lap number 3 of 12.
Henry Julian has set the fastest lap of the race so far here on lap 2, just a tenth quicker than Jarrett Corey. Perhaps the one car might be able to close the gap a little bit, give us a little bit of a fight for the finish for that top spot on the podium. But it looks like they have checked out on the votive driver of Indy Kirkwood, who is currently residing in 3rd place.
Yeah, I'm suspecting Henry's hanging just inside the draft window of this car. It tends to run about within 1.5 seconds, maybe a bit longer. And that push to pass is even more of a benefit with that draft because you get the kind of the I'm going to just call it the Constantina effect of being, in the draft with more power, kind of just pushes you forward that slight bit. They're both going to get on the button, heading down the back straightaway. Corey stays on it for a good while here. That seems to be the opportune zone that these guys are committing to using a good bit of that button. We'll kind of recap that at the end of lap 4, see where drivers are sitting on that push to pass figure, because I figure we've seen a good bit of usage of it already, even in just these opening couple laps.
Right, and keep in mind we also see Logan Edwards seems to be creeping up into the back of the Prodigy driver known as the Prodigy, Indy Kirkwood, as well as dragging Alex K. Stevens, who seems to have gotten his cat situation sorted out, as he is staying glued to that Luke Mansky Racing Esports car as they snake their way through this Miami Autodrome.
Yeah, we had just taken a quick glance at Tom Donahoe on Eli Hinton. Hinton leads that train. Donahoe's about 0.2 back. they're likely going to end up side by side down the backstretch, I'd imagine, if Donahoe can stay in tow behind him. We'll see how that transpires.
Oh, we got a move here. Isabella Matthews on the inside of Blue Mall.
Yeah, into that marina section. Not going to be quite enough to be able to stick the power down, but they'll be alongside for the backstretch here.
Right, and it looks like Isabella is looking up to do the switch up here and gets the move done on Joseph Blue Mall. She was a good 3/10 quicker than Blue Mall on that last lap. Probably hoping to catch back to the back of Eli Hinton here. But Blue Mall doesn't look to be done. Gets around the outside under braking. Now has the inside. Ooh, this is some great racing. Here's Jacob.
Yeah, we saw likewise with Donahoe and Hinton navigating this quarter complex.
They touch.
Yeah, good bit of curb usage for Matthews there.
Yeah, they definitely touched, and Joseph Blue Mall's probably pressing that damage report button, trying to see if they have any damage into their front wing.
Yeah, the gap has now closed even further between Kirkenbauer and Edwards. Edwards sits about a half-second back. I believe at the start of this lap, that was closer to 8/10. Oh, around goes Blommel.
Blue Mall has spun. Blue Mall goes around. And that also catches up Rupert McLean, who is now missing a side pod on that IL-18. That is going to be a hefty penalty in terms of drag and downforce. And frustration for Blue Mall.
Yeah, both drivers running just inside the top 10 there. Likely going to have a big swing of momentum and potentially some luck go their way to make it further up the grid. But we'll run through kind of push to pass. We'll hop back to the lead here with Jarrett Corey. We'll see how drivers are doing on that push to pass. So Jarrett sits on 103, Henry on 107. Kirkenbauer's on the button in the third spot. He'll come off of that fairly shortly. 124 for him. Edwards on 117. Stevens on 105. Donahoe sits on 84. Hinton 62. Matthews on 90. Fletcher on 118. And Dustin Bolgren rounding out the top 10 on 116. So a fair bit of push-to-pass usage. We're, haven't quite seen half of it used up, but we're not quite halfway yet as we're going to get on to lap 6 once Jarrett makes it down the back straightaway and around the final corner.
Yes, and we're seeing the Luke Mansky eSports driver all over the back of the votive driver in the IL-15 series here. And it looks like Logan has pulled alongside. He's probably mashing that button, trying to make sure that Logan gets around Kirkenbauer. He wants his second podium interview of the night.
Yeah, Indy's going to hang tough on the outside here. Not the fastest way around here, but the exit can be potentially better. We'll see if he gets a run down the front straightaway here. Back on Edwards. He's going to be on the button, trying to make that move as early as he can. Edwards is going to go defensive on the inside here.
It looks like Kirkenbauer's going to clear. Oh, no. Logan brave on the brakes there into turn number 1. We have a all-out brawl here for that final step on the podium between these two drivers.
Yeah, deep into the corner for Edwards, heading through this marina loop. They'll head through this very long left-hander here to get onto that back straightaway. And here they come. So the gap back to Edwards from Henry sits at 7 seconds. So the gap at the lead hasn't really changed too much. It kind of bobbles around a little over that 1 second mark and change depending on where you are on the track.
Yeah.
We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, it seems Corey cannot quite break out enough of a gap for Oliad to no longer catch back up on those long straightaways. Oh, Logan Edwards spins! Logan Edwards has spun through the marina loop. While fighting with Kirkenbauer, they had just gotten the move done, and they are tumbling down the order.
I'm wondering if Logan towed.
Into the pit lane. What a Logan has now towed that car. I see it in the pit lane on my relative here. What a heartbreak for Logan Edwards, but that promotes Tom Donahue to 4th. Kirkenbauer is now on the top step of the podium. The last step of the podium. Donahue is closing in, likely caused by having to check up for that spinning Luke Mansky car. And
Yeah.
Alan Stevens promoted into 5th. Eli Hinton now sits 6th, and Isabella Matthews is in 7th. Round out your top 7.
Yeah, I'm suspecting what might have happened for Logan there is he might have grabbed the throttle jumping that curb, and the rear tires kind of grab that curb and yoink you around in a circle in a hurry. And that's the kind of the high risk, high reward you have trying to go through that corner that aggressively here at Miami.
Indeed, it seems to be one of those cases of if you can get away with it, you look like a genius. If you can't, well, you're sitting in the garage, hat in your hands, wondering what happened. But it definitely seems to be the fastest way around. You can cut these corners quite a bit. Seems to be the case with a lot of these modern F1 tracks when they come to iRacing. I know Mexico City also has a lot of great corner cuts, just like here at Miami. But it seems for Logan Edwards, those just have not quite worked out. And Logan has left the server. So unfortunately, that is day done for the Luke Mansky machine.
Yeah, big slide for Donahoe behind Kirkenbauer, working through that chicane once more. We'll ride this next lap around with Henry Oliet as he looks to chase down our leader in Jarrett Corey. We'll get the driver inputs on the screen so we can see what he's trying to do in his hunt for the win here tonight. Just getting over halfway here.
Here's Brandon Stone has had an issue, or Brandon Staten has had an issue. They're currently sat on pit lane. They were driving around without a nose, and it looks like they were in a battle with Chris Fletcher, and there was some contact, and it sent Brandon into the wall, and then they had a spin trying to get the car home and just decided not to tow it. Tough break for Brandon.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can get the replay camera on that. Here's Brandon in the pit lane. We'll see if we can find when his car comes around. There as it is around here. He's missing a front wing there. So it's likely well away of this. So here we are heading down the backstretch with Fletcher and Staten. Oh, maybe netcode contact sends Staten into the inside wall. And he is now front wingless and likely navigated to the pit lane to repair that. Likely additional damage just given the angle he hit that wall. But we'll catch back up to Henry at the front of the field here as we're navigating the tail end of this lap here.
Yeah, and another thing I want to highlight here while we are watching is Dustin has climbed from 16th on the grid to 8th. That is 8 positions gained for the American. Great run going for that 13 machine.
Yeah, certainly no short task and be able to climb through the field here, especially given the limited passing opportunities around this track, even in spite of the lengthy straightaways around here.
For sure, and especially with the level of talent that we have in this field. I mean, we have, unfortunately, Logan Edwards had their troubles, but we've got people like Indy Kirkenbauer, Jarrett Corey, Henry Oliad, very, very talented drivers, Isabella Matthews. These are very talented drivers, so when you can climb through the field in a field this stacked, that's a really good night.
Yeah, and we'll see the best for Oval Series action tomorrow night in open wheel machinery. That'll be highlighted by the IndyCar Oval Fix Series. They'll be taking on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night, followed up by our coverage of the Indy NXT Oval Series from the current scan of Phoenix. That'll be 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night. That'll wrap up the coverage here on P1 for the calendar year. We'll be back at the start of the year with more official series action from there. Henry's gotten this gap down to inside 1 second here. Curious to see if this continues to die down in the closing stages as Henry maybe held on to his tires a bit better.
And also, keep in mind, Dave, with the draft in general, you are going to catch up a bunch. So if Jarrett Corey has made a mistake and it seems to be sliding a lot to that Marina loop there, if you're really struggling, you just have someone immediately up in your draft range, only a second separating them as they're off the corner. And those two have just checked out on the rest of the field. Kirkenbauer and Donahue is the closest battle on the track right now for that final step of the podium, but they are 12 seconds behind Henry Oliad. The British driver and Jarrett Corey have just checked out on the rest of this field.
Yeah, they certainly stand as the class of the field. We'll actually hop back to that battle for the third spot as Tom is there on Indy, ready to make a move when the moment strikes. We're coming to 3 laps to go here. Not too much longer left in this race for these drivers to make those final moves. Field's relatively strung out, aside from a select couple of battles. But nonetheless, it's been quite the action-packed night here from Miami.
For sure, and the thing I want to highlight there, since you watched Indy Kirkwood go into turn 1, look at the curb usage. Indy really taking the attitude, if I paid for all this track, I am going to use it. And so far, that is helping them stay in front of Tom Donahue. There's another tight battle back a little further into the pack for the 5th spot between Alan K. Stevens, the Catman, and Eli Hinton. They both are within only a few tenths of each other. So there is a bunch of battles within the top 5 of this field between Jarrett Corey and Ilya, between Indy Kirkwood and Tom Donahue, and Alan K. Stevens and Eli Hinton.
2 by 2 by 2, as they say, and Donahoe's going to look to the inside at the back end of the straightaway here. Indy will hold on to it, sweeping around the outside ever so slightly. They're going to navigate into that very tricky chicane. Let's see what they do here. Bounces for both drivers. They're going to navigate that back straightaway. Donahoe's on the button a little before Indy here. See that battle for the 5th spot with Stevens and Hinton off in the background. So I guess for a bit of perspective as to what we're seeing pace-wise here, Henry was only 4 thousandths faster that last time by compared to Jarrett leading. They're running 1:45.627 for Henry. This battle here for third, the fastest lap between these two was Donahoe last time by with a 1:46.363. So it's over 3/4 of a second in terms of lap time here between these drivers for the bottom step of the podium compared to the top 2.
Right, and Alan K. Stevens and Eli Hinton have also been turning very, very similar lap times. The gaps between these drivers in terms of their pace is just so small, but it's those tiny little mistakes, those tiny little details that can mean the difference between you fighting over 5th place or you fighting over 3rd place. This is an incredibly stacked and competitive field, isn't it, Jacob?
Yeah, and it's the nice thing you see in these Road to Indy cars historically is if you can kind of mind your P's and Q's, you always have a battle somewhere.
They almost touched there. Sorry to interrupt, but Andy took a very defensive line there into that hairpin and nearly slid up and chopped off the nose of Tom Donahue. They are really trying, as they are now going to be powering down onto that backstretch. They are fighting for everything they got for that last spot on the podium. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, and Tom used a heavy amount of that inside kind of runoff area between the bollard and the curb heading through that chicane. You know, we saw that not pan out very good for Edwards, but Donahoe got away with it and is still in contention for the 3rd spot here. White flag's in the air for our leader in Jarrett Corey. We don't want to take the eyes off the battle here as the lead for Jarrett has stabilized at a little over a second still. So we're going to stick here with the battle for 3rd as Indy Kirkwood looks to defend the bottom step of the podium from Tom Donahoe.
Yeah, and further back, we don't want to distract from this battle, but there is another interesting battle further back in the field over the 8th position. Dustin and Chris Fletcher have been very close together. Dustin, again, is the biggest move of the race, moving up 8 positions from 16th on the grid. But again, we do not want to detract from these amazing battles in the top 5. There is just great battles all around the Miami Autodrome.
Yeah, that's certainly a big highlight of these Road to Indy ladder cars is being able to have those very, very close battles. And it's not entirely down to just motoring away from people. We've seen kind of Corey and Olied have the best of the bulk of the field here tonight, but they're still within a second of each other. You know, one mistake can put them in the clutches of one another quicker than you think.
Oh, it looks like Tom Donahue is going to possibly get the move around on Indy Kirkwood. They forced a very defensive line from Kirkenbauer, but it seems that Indy is holding on here just by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, we caught it just as they navigated that chicane complex. They're both on the button down the backstretch. Who's going to take it?
Indeed, this battle has been just absolutely fierce. They were slipping and sliding. No one could get the traction down, and that's honestly what enabled Indy Kirkenbauer to retain the third position. Donahue could not just get the power down to take advantage of the inside line when they had it. As they navigate that final heavy braking zone, it looks like Kirkenbauer is going to hold on to the third position ahead of Donahue. What an absolute battle. And then we still have Eli Hinton has gotten around Alan K. Stevens for the 5th position. We'll have to go back and see what that was. That was likely a very good move, but it's been an excellent race.
And we've still got the likes of John Corwin and Michael Lieberman fighting for 11th. They're within a second of each other. We'll get the last of these. I believe these are the last of the lead lap. No, we've got a couple cars still on the lead lap, I believe. Navigating the...
Well, it looks like Josef Lumel has been promoted to 9th. Did something happen during that battle?
Chris Fletcher, maybe?
Yeah, what happened with Chris Fletcher?
Well, Jarrett's found a nice parking spot in the marina here. And we'll run through our finishing lineup once the last of the cars get around. Oh, what'd you find?
Yeah, I found what happened to Chris Fletcher. They just spun it, going through the marina loop. And just collected the inside wall, and for tough break after that battle there with Dustin.
Yeah, so we're coming through the left-hander onto the backstretch here. Chris is going to get onto the throttle, just a little bit too much wheel it looks like, into the throttle and noses it into the inside wall. So close yet so far. Tough break for Chris Fletcher. Down the order he goes, down to 14th. And we'll get through the rest of the finishing result and get our podium finishers on up here. So it will be Jarrett Corey with the win here tonight over Henry Olied. That gap ended up down just under 9/10 of a second. Indy Kirkenbauer just barely held on over Tom Donahoe for the bottom step of the podium. He'll round that one out. Eli Hinton will finish 5th. Alex Stevens will finish in the 6th spot as the number 6 car. Not a bad way to end the night. Isabel Matthews will finish 7th in the number 5 with Dustin Bolgren in 8th. Joseph Blommel will finish 9th with Rupert McLean rounding out the top 10. John Corwin will be 11th. Michael Lieberman will be 12th. Georgie Tripsick will be 13th. Chris Fletcher, we saw his issues late. Likewise, Brandon Staton. Logan Edwards, we saw his incident through the chicane late in the going, and Ellis Spice will round out the 17-car field. All in all, a very exciting race.
Indeed, Jacob, there were great battles throughout the entire field, whether it be the battle for the lead between Corey and Oliad, or the fight in the back between Fletcher and Dustin. All in all, great race here at Miami Circuit.
Jarrett's opted to give us some burnouts here, so we'll let his burnouts take up the screen for the time being. I believe we'll have Indy Kirkenbauer up here shortly. Who doesn't love turbocharged 4-cylinder? And there goes.
I know, it's a beautiful, beautiful sounding car, especially as it's smacking off the limiter. Excellent sounding car.
So we will get Indy's car if we can find it. I need to get on the right camera to do this. There's Indy's machine. We'll back the cameras up just a little bit further to afford us some time here. I believe we're so far out, this may be too far out. Goodness me. All right, we'll get Indy's car on the screen here. We'll park it nice and tidy. Get him on up here. Indy Kirkwood, Jacob Collins, P1 Broadcasting. You got me?
Yep, I got you.
Well, another podium appearance here for you on the road side of things. You had to fight off a hard-charging Tom Donahoe in the late stages here. Kind of walk us through your race here.
Yeah, it was a tough race. I was just trying to stay up on the podium. I've only got one of these, and it was Lime Rock last season, and it was the lowest SOF of Indy NXT road history. So I really wanted to get a good result here. So I did some practice, even though I don't like the track, and it paid off.
Yeah, it certainly seemed very tricky to get a car around here, as we've seen throughout the lead up to this event here tonight. So a number of drivers get caught out by that chicane on a number of instances. You know, cars getting loose onto the backstretch, even, well, both straightaways, to be fair, getting the power down. So do you have any thoughts as to how you were able to manage that? We saw you very aggressively using the curbs through the opening sector of the track, especially late in the going. What did you figure out about this place?
But yeah, in the S's section, the curbs aren't really curbs, just paint. So I was able to get on that, but very, very low grip, even though it's a low track temp, which is weird. But I was just trying to figure out how to not crash and hold off the 4 car. He was a lot faster than me. I was just trying to keep him behind. It was a really close, hard battle. But yeah, even though that this track isn't the greatest, that race was really fun.
Certainly glad you had some fun out here tonight, Indy. Sophie, you got anything to add for our third place finisher tonight?
Yeah, Andy, could you walk us through kind of the emotional roller coaster this race must have been for you? You managed to qualified P3. It seemed that Logan had gotten around you, but then as you go through that tight chicane, Logan spun in front of you, thinking you were a little bit free there, or was it immediate? Your next thought was to the Tom Donahoe machine, seeing that silver car in the rearview mirror.
Well, yeah, I immediately knew that I needed to fend from him. It's always in racing, you should never think about how that if you're just one car spins, then you're okay for that position. Now all I'm trying to think is how much push to pass can I save for the end without having Tom pass me. But yeah, it's a tricky track, and yeah, had some fun in this one.
Yeah, I believe we saw both you and Tom run out of push to pass heading onto that back straightaway in the closing lap there. But nonetheless, solid finish for you tonight, Indy. Fun race for you as well. That's not a bad way to have a Monday evening. Friends, family, sponsors, anybody you want to shout out, floor is yours.
Yeah, my go-kart sponsors are Fremont Functional Fitness, BG Emery and Associates, Make Something on YouTube, Alley and Clyde, Four Ball Pizza Palace, Bayside Heating and Cooling. Thank you for putting on this broadcast. Thanks to Votive Racing. And yeah, that's fun race.
And we won't forget to thank your dad for your sim rig this time, too. Have a good one, Indy.
Yeah, thanks.
Have a good one, Indy. We hope to catch you tomorrow night for the Oval Series at Phoenix.
I will be there.
All right, and that'll do it for Indy Kirkenbauer. We'll get Henry on the screen briefly here. Get a bit closer on him so we can actually see his machine. There's Henry's machine. There we go.
I don't appear to see Henry in the waiting for interviews. Hopefully we can snag him.
Yeah, if we can't snag him, we'll get him on the screen. He put up a heck of a fight with Jarrett here, trying to hold on. Got within a second at the closing stages. The gap was about as high as, I think, nearly 2 seconds. So he stayed nice and close with Jarrett all race long. But we'll get to the man of the evening. Another win for him. I have to track his car down.
Oh, it looks like Henry did. Someone has popped into the waiting for interview.
Oh.
Let me check if that is.
We'll rescind. We can find his car again. Goodness me.
Yep, that is Henry. Henry has joined us. Almost missed his chance. So.
Well, we would have caught him back in here at some point. Now I got to find his car again. You know what? We'll just.
The best made plans are always brought to ruin by chaos, aren't they, Jacob?
We'll break the wall here. We'll get Henry's car on screen once more. Apologies, everybody. I still need to figure out how to get cameras lined up for interviews. Typically, I managed to get it stopped in time to not have to catch him again, but here we are with the driver of the one machine. We'll bring him on up here. Henry Olied. I hope I've got that roughly right. Jacob Collins, Sophie Connell, P1 Broadcasting. You got me? I see your lips moving, but the words aren't coming out, Henry.
Unfortunately, it appears we can't really hear your mic quality. It's coming very muffled.
Oh.
Is it working now? There we go.
Well, we can at least hear you here. So you were able to hold on to a nice, solid second-place finish, trying to claw into that lead battle with Jarrett Corey all night long. Kind of talk us through the consistency you had to try to stay up near the front tonight.
Yeah, this is a little bit unexpected. Well, messaged me after the race and said this is broadcast. Like people will say. Yeah, been finding consistency. This is the first time I've ever driven track. Like, I did the race before. Contrary, I guess, to what Indy was saying, I actually really enjoy this track. It's really difficult. So, first practice I did was terrible, and then I found some consistency. The track limits are very strange. I think it became like yeah, fun track.
It certainly sounded like a number of guys were having a good bit of fun out here, even in spite of the track being relatively tricky. Do you have anything that might have worked out well for you here tonight in terms of getting this place figured out?
Yeah, the first section before the long left hand, I think it's 4, 5, 6. I think they were saying it's the paint on the track. If you really do inside, the track limits are crazy. You can really cut those curves a lot. There's loads of time there, but the corner afterwards, there's so much potential to lose time. That it's just a bit quicker than me overall, like through the whole race, I think. But most corners you just lose touch the track. So, finally got to consistency, but that was a bit.
All right, Henry. Well, it's been good to have you on up here this week. Might need to get your microphone sorted out a little bit better if you manage to make it back on up here again. But if you got anybody you want to shout out here, floor is yours. Friends, family, sponsors, floor is yours.
No one in particular. I mean, thanks to you guys for the broadcast. It's always nice to go back and watch races commentated over the last time. So, hoping to get more.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us here, Henry. Hope to catch you next week. I believe we're taking on the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya in its historic configuration. We hope to catch you out there.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. That'll do it for Henry. And we'll get Jared on up here. Hopefully we don't got to attempt to compensate for technical issues once more with Jarrett. He's been around here a couple times. We got to get his car on the screen, though. If I can track him down. There's the driver of the two machine. Get him on up here. Jarrett Corey, Jacob Collins, Sophie Connell, P1 Broadcasting. You got me?
Yep.
Well, you led lights to flag. Henry tried his darndest to catch you and make a move. Got within a second in the closing stages. Looked like you had it pretty settled in come the last couple laps there. But kind of walk us through what you figured out here at Miami.
Yeah, so I mean, I've said it on like Discord before, but like I spent week 1 at this track in the Porsche Cup, the P Cup as I've been calling it, and I think that sort of helped sort of figure this place out because, I mean, like no, but unless you've driven it on F1 games, which I haven't, I mean, this is a new track for everybody. It's certainly a new track in the Sims, so we're all trying to figure this place out, and so that sort of, I think it increases the sort of pace gaps like across the field because everyone's trying to figure this place out. And I think especially it's like just consistency because I mean, even if you can set one really good lap, I mean, you got to do it over and over and over again. And that can be very difficult when the track's new. You're trying to figure it out, especially if some of these curbs and I mean, the best way to call this track is just awkward. Like almost every corner here is awkward. I mean, you could even make an argument that every corner here is at least a little bit awkward. So it's just a very difficult track to be consistent around. But I seem to found something to just be more consistent, especially that chicane. I found sort of just avoiding that curb because as tempting as it is to just eat all the way over it, you can't. Like I hit it once right in practice and it was quick, but you cannot do that over and over and over again. So I sort of found sort of squaring the corner a bit and just avoiding the curb was the way to go for that corner. And I think that caught out some people who are just sort of going over the curb, like just throwing it over there, which you get away with in the Porsche Cup, like a big sports car, but you cannot in these open wheelers. And then from there, it's just sort of managing push to pass because there's a lot of long straights here. I believe you mentioned, I don't know, I didn't see the track guide, but I know you mentioned on Discord, Jacob, that you can burn up a lot of push to pass down these straights. I want to say you said like 20 seconds, which is a lot. I think a push to pass charge is like 15 seconds. So that's like a charge and a third of another charge. So that's a lot of push to pass, and you just got to manage it. And for most of the race, I thought Henry was actually using a lot more push to pass than me because he was sort of closing in on the straights without being in like a second. But towards the end, he was still closing in on me. I felt like I was using less, so I'll have to watch back the broadcast and see if that's the case, or if perhaps the draft actually extends much further back than I thought it did, because that could be a sort of a good thing to know for the future in this car if the draft is that strong from that far back to be gaining like a 10 for 2 down the straights without using much more push to pass.
Yeah, certainly a lot of things playing into the kind of the car in this still relatively new state we've got it. We're still learning a lot about it, trying to figure out kind of, draft envelope, how things like the push to pass impact the draft, right? This is the first time we've seen a road to IndyCar with push to pass aside from the IndyCar proper, and this is arguably the closest we've seen a lot of cars put together, especially on the road side of things. You talked a good bit about consistency and getting around this place. Do you feel like that there was maybe a lot of kind of traditional means of just backing the corners up, setting up, the entire corner complexes to kind of guide you through laps around here? It definitely seemed like a number of drivers were struggling with getting power put back down, particularly onto those long straightaways. Saw a number of cars get loose or even completely spun around in a number of instances, just trying to get the power down when they needed it.
Yeah, it's a lot of just more of the same with this car, and I think I didn't struggle with that as much because I think I've just been driving this car week in, week out. I think I've only missed like 2 weeks so far, and those are both fairly early on when the car was just released. So I'm more used to it probably than some of the other drivers, and so like I'm used to sort of backing up the corners, and now it's just kind of the way I drive it. But for some of those drivers who maybe have been driving it as long, you cannot like overdrive it, especially like an entry, and then you can't get on the throttle on the exit the way you can in some other cars.
Sophie, anything else to add for our winner and Jarrett tonight?
Yeah, I was gonna ask. You were talking very much about using the Porsche Cup car, the Porsche Cup machine, to prepare for this. How much preparation just with the IL-15 really went into such an honestly, amazingly consistent and dominant run that you had tonight?
Yeah, I can pull up Garage 61 real quick. Garage 61 says 85 laps minus like it says 15 laps for each race I did because I did the race before this, so that's about 55 laps worth of practice in total I did. And a lot of that's just finding consistency because, I mean, I was doing 46s pretty early, and then it took a little bit to get into the 45s. But once I broke into the 45s, I started doing that a bit more consistently, and then doing a couple more sort of race practice runs, and I eventually got into least doing 45s to low 46s consistently.
Certainly further evidence that practice pays off in race victories. Jarrett, you know what to do here. Friends, family, sponsors, anybody you want to shout out, floor is yours.
P1 Broadcasting, yourself, Sophie, for putting this on, and I guess Herman Tilke for not designing the track. I mean, who knows if it would have been worse if he designed it, so.
Well, we'll certainly be thankful for all of those things. We'll catch you either tomorrow night for the next road series or next week when we take on the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya. I believe there's a chance for rain. Not sure if that offsets your eagerness to show up for that one, but we hope to see you very soon.
Yep, I plan to be there for Catalunya as well as Phoenix tomorrow.
Well, we'll certainly be looking forward to you being there, Jarrett. Good win tonight.
See ya.
That'll do it for interviews tonight. We got everybody. Thank goodness for that. We got everybody. Sophie, you got any closing remarks for the road series here from Miami? It very much seemed like the drivers were having a whale of a time out there navigating this track, first and foremost, but they were having fun doing it.
For sure, Jacob. It was a lot of battles throughout the entire pack, whether you were fighting over the top 5, the top 10, even P1, P2, all within a second of each other. It was a great race to watch. A lot of fun, tricky track, some heartbreaking mistakes from some incredibly talented drivers. Just all in all, great evening, great race on a very new and interesting track.
And I don't think I can say it too much better myself. For all those watching at home, we thank you very much for tuning into the Indy NXT Road Series here on Monday night. That'll do it for our Monday night coverage here on the channel. Catch us tomorrow night for the Indy NXT Oval Series from Indianapolis, the IndyCar Oval Series from Indianapolis and the Indy NXT Oval Series from Phoenix back-to-back to round out our coverage for the 2025 calendar year. The physical real-world one, not the iRacing one. We're already in 2026 in iRacing land, but we'll hope to catch you there. And to all those that do the difficult jobs all around the world, we thank you very much for what you do and allowing us to do all the fun things we do, like bring you Indy NXT coverage here on P1 Broadcasting. We thank you all very much. Have a good night, and we will catch you next time.